Hi, this is Zeke with Odd Job Fix. I have another antiques restoration to show you today. This is one of the most damaged pieces I've ever worked on, and before I tell you what it is, I'm just going to walk you around it and show you the inlay that is missing, and that's the job today, is to reproduce and install this inlay. What we have here is an Edwardian or possibly Georgian Celleratte. Now, a Celleratte is a wine or whiskey cabinet. It has a copper interior. I'll get to that in a second. Basically just very simply decorated. It's got square legs. It's on casters. They were made to roll away. They came with handles so you could move them from room to room. And one of the big features about a Celleratte is that they were lockable so that you could keep your wine and your liquor under lock and key. So, what's wrong with this? Well, number one, it came with a replacement top. And this was completely wrong, so I've already removed the nails. And we can see that we've got the frame for the top here, and one of the questions was, why does the veneer stick up in an area like this? Why was there a little veneer left over here in an area like this? What was really on top of this thing is the question. Well, fortunately, there was one piece of the original top that was laying inside, which reveals all the clues. First of all, if we get this oriented right, the nail holes matched up to the first set of nail holes that were in the top frame. Second of all, it's hard to see, there's a little band right there that reveals that the veneer did stop right there, and that there was some inlay that went all the way across the top, and then it was covered with this veneer. And that explains why, although this does not fit over here, that explains why there was some veneer left raised in this part, because when the top expanded and contracted as they tend to do, it just snapped the veneer off pretty cleanly, except in this one area, which is you can see there's sort of a jagged edge there. So we have a plan. We're not going to make more individual pine boards and try to veneer the entire top. What we're going to do is we have a piece of already veneered material, and we're going to cut it to fit and slide down inside of this, and then trim all of this off flush. Possibly we'll trim this one a 1/4 inch or 3/16 inch low, so that this veneer this inlay that goes all the way across the front, top and bottom, around the legs, up the sides, up the corners, across the top, and back down, and so on and so forth. So we're going to see about that. That inlay did not go around the side, as evidenced by this piece right here, which, as I said, broke off when the original top, came loose. Likely just due to moisture and expansion and age. While we're looking inside, I will show you that this is copper lined. I don't believe that you could call this an ice chest, although it is probably watertight, so it could have been used as a wine chiller. But in its day and age, I don't think ice was plentiful, so that would have been quite the luxury. So let's take a look at the top piece we're going to use. This is the top to an old piano. It's mahogany, as is the Celleratte. It's got a problem with the finish, but probably going to want to put this on the top side because it does have some nice figuring. Whereas the bottom side, although nicer, this bottom side with the hinge holes right there is in not much better shape, but it doesn't have a lot of figuring, so I think this will make a good inside. The plan is to cut a section of this out that matches the outside dimension of the top of the frame of the Celleratte, and then very carefully, using the table saw, we'll take a rabbet out, leaving only the veneer hanging over, which will then slide down inside the frame. Now, this is how I expect the new piece to work. Leaving just the veneer on the top. This is all one piece, made out of the piano top. And we should be able to set it down like that. Get it to hang over the edge and then trim everything off flush. This is a better corner to probably show how this would work. So I've squared the top. It's pretty close. More importantly, I squared the bottom, the base, and it's a little out, about 26 1/8 there. And I'm looking at 26 1/4, could be a little bit more there. So, putting the top back on, feeling for it to be kind of lined up, and checking again, 26 1/8, 26 1/8, 26 1/4. So it's a little out. Probably what we're going to do is flip this upside down on the piano and just go ahead and scribe it. It's going to be just slightly out of square. One thing I noticed while studying the front of this is that it has some figuring that circles around this handle right here. So we're going to look for something like that on the top. Now, looking for grain on the top is kind of hard with all of this reflection. But I see some cathedral graining here. As a matter of fact, it looked like it was book matched right there. There's a seam right there. I probably want to avoid that. Let's move down here a little further. Again, I know it's C, but there's another book match right there, and that may be hard to avoid. This is all straight right here. There's a knot here and a knot there, and I suspect that handle is underneath a knot. There's a knot here too. And actually, I sort of like this area right here. Right over to the book match. Got some nice figuring. Somewhere in that area right there. It won't go this way. It's not quite enough. So I'm going to have to, unfortunately, just kind of use up all of this. Sacrifice it for the best piece we can get. Now I can see that there's another very faint book match right here. But since it's here, I'm going to have to pretty much have to put that in the center of the top. So now it's a matter of just picking the green that we like. And I think the figuring down here with this knot is probably going to be the best. Okay, so I need to mark the center, 22.5, so that's 11.25. It'll be right there. 11.25 down here is going to be just to the left of that screw. That shows 11 1/8. We're going to be about there. All right, using a feather board like this, I'm able to first cut this slot, and now we're going to go along the back here and cut the rabbet out so that this overlays the top frame. Came out right where we wanted it on the tape. So that should lay right down on the cabinet like that. When we left off, I had showed you this piece right here, which was all that was left of the top. And I mentioned that the veneer that was along the edge of these pieces of the top, it was broken, and like the rest of the pieces of this top, just not here. So the decision was made, and I think I showed the idea of doing a rabbet so that I could just get a piece of wood that it was already veneered and cut it and lay it down there, which I've done. And that would be this piece right here. This was actually part of a piano, and it's veneered both sides. And so I snuck up on it and cut a rabbet, and it will glue down like that. Now, there is a little bit of inlay involved here, and I went ahead and put this piece of inlay in here first. the other pieces of inlay that need to be installed, such as along this vertical area here. There's another one here that's missing in this vertical area here. They can be done after the top is glued on to the hinged frame. So that now, once this is trimmed off flush here, will solve the problem of about 1/2 of an inch of veneer missing around the entire top of this chest. It's going to be 1/2 inch shorter, but that's just the way it's going to be. So you might ask about the inlay, and I'm going to show you real quick how I made some inlay in order to finish this up. It's missing in several places, but most prominently, as I showed you, right here and right here. And there's a little bit down here. I don't know if you can see this. Probably too low for the camera. There's some missing. It goes right there, and wraps around and goes down the side. So what we're going to do is go get set up to glue this. And after this is glued, we'll trim it flush. Well, after fooling around with several tools, such as this old plane here, this rabbeting plane, and this Stanley that I don't have a fence for, nice tool, if you have all the attachments. So I ended up making a card scraper. Alright, so the way this is used is just use the ruler there as a stop, set the depth with a board and some clamps. Here, let me pull this piece. This is intended to lay in there. That completes that molding. Now that molding, it has 2 of the 3 pieces. This is a new one. This will just be reconstituted at the bottom. Let me get that out of the way. And you can see how this works, or maybe better from this angle here. And that's how you would make a shallow rabbet, 16th by 16th. This project got put on hold because of the holidays. It's been sitting idle for about a month. So I'm just going to recap some of the things that I did. I put a new top on it, a new used top. The top was a piece of plywood. I have no idea what happened to the original top. So we salvaged a part of a piano top, and I think, remember, we did a rabbet all the way around the edge here, and then just dropped it in there. So there's a little bit of an edge showing. I'll do some close-ups of this. Obviously, it's not hinged, and it's intended to be. So I've got some new old stock hinges here. Sitting in some ammonia and salt. I'm going to give them just a little bit of aging, along with some new solid brass slotted screws. The screws were either missing, or they were not usable, or broken. So a lot of the inlay was replaced with inlay that we made. Again, I'll show you a close-up of this in just a little bit. So pieces, full pieces here, full pieces here, sections here, 1/3 of this down here on the back corners, on some of the lower sides. And of course, when you do that, you're going to have new edges on the cabinet. And after evening them out, I think earlier in the video I showed a little bit of paring, where you just slide the chisel along, try not to nick the original finish, and make it so you can't catch it with your fingernail. Sandpaper is not the best idea here. Might use a little bit of sandpaper just to ease a corner. But another thing I like to do is take a hardened pin, and I'll run the pin on these corners. We don't want a sharp corner on a 150-year-old piece, but we don't want to distress it either. However, this hammer can be useful when you come to sharp corners like this, because if this were a 150-year-old joint, it wouldn't be sharp. So you just give it a little tap there. Here's one right here that's a little proud. Might even take the ball peen and just kind of ease those back into place there, so you can't really hook your hand on it there. So here are some close-ups of the work that I was describing. Both the outside front corners were completely missing. There was a considerable amount of damage down here, and then I went so far and then just get sort of a scarf joint there. There's a little bit of inlay repair there, and this is typical above most of the legs. Here's a little strip that was along the back corner. And same thing here along the lower front edge. So right there is the top of the 3-part inlay, and then the middle, which is ebony, and then the bottom. So I just used the bottom part, and I used a card scraper, which I think I showed, to clean that up, so I had something to glue to. And continuing on, we've got this other corner here, and I don't know if you can see the edge that's available there that needs a little bit of touch up, but that's as thin as I could make it and still have any strength. So otherwise it's not been touched. So the next move is to stain the molding to match the cabinet. Now I'm going to take some stain, and I don't think it matters what kind of brush I use, just as long as it holds a little bit of stain. And I'm just going to liberally apply the stain right over the new and the old at the same time, because the existing part's not going to take up any stain. We'll just hit all these areas. I don't think we need to let it sit there very long, but just gently wipe it off. And that looks like that's going to be a little bit light. So I might go to a coloring pencil or a coloring felt tip and use this elsewhere. Now you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm going to try it here on this exposed edge that really doesn't have any of the birch wood. The inlay was made out of birch and ebony, as I mentioned. I can show you that real quick again. This is the ebony and birch that was laminated, and then just draw that through the bandsaw anywhere from 3/32 down to a 1/16 of an inch in order to get pieces like this. Now I really don't know if that end shows up very well, but that's how thin it is on the piece itself. Well, we'll get back to this this piece I was doing before I interrupted myself, and see how it looks on the end. And I think I see a little bit of glue squeeze out there that's preventing the stain from really taking. It's a good color. It just isn't. It just isn't as dark as the initial right here, almost. But let's take a break, and I'll get one of those markers out. I'm going to have to admit that I was off camera for a couple of days. I had to just let this go to resolve some problems in my head. While I was thinking about it, I went ahead and installed the lid. That was a challenge in itself, because one corner wanted to stay high, so it took a little finessing with shims to do that. I want to take the camera off the tripod here and show you what a mess things are. I'm going to walk over to the bench from this angle right here and just show you that I just made a mess of things. I tried all these fillers and markers. I could not come up with a color that would do these inlays. I just couldn't get it to look right. There's still some areas that I'm not really happy with, but for the most part, I think a good waxing, it might be ready to go. I finally ended up using a dye stain and a little tiny brush, just tediously doing it like that. And then, well, here's my old dirty rag that I'd wipe it back down with. Some of them are quite fancy. Some of them are pretty plain like this. It seems like an awful lot of them had some sort of an inlay, and if I get right in here, I don't know, yeah, you can see there's just a little bit of a, what we might call a beauty groove. Just a, it's not an inlay. Well, actually, as I look at it, I believe it is an inlay. I can't imagine how anybody got that in there. I'll just keep getting closer here. Try to get rid of the shadow. Yeah, that's an inlay. Well, anyway, thanks for watching. I'm going to call that one done and send it off.